Wellbeing. The concept of wellbeing has so many meanings, and this week we're looking at the full picture. Yesterday we spoke to Olympic sailing medalist Lisa Darmanin about how she combines her passion for the environment with her busy racing schedule. We also heard from international musician Cody Simpson about how his early career in swimming and his passion for the ocean have helped to shape his path to success. If you'd like to check out yesterday's program, you can watch it on the Australian Olympic Team YouTube or Facebook page. Today, we're talking about empowering your future. And to do this, I'll be speaking to two people who've taken very different paths and used a variety of experiences to land somewhere amazing. If you have any questions for our guests today, please comment on the Facebook or YouTube page, and I'll put them to our guests at the end of the day. First, I'd like to introduce an iconic Australian athlete who is not only a two-time Olympian, Commonwealth Games champion and record holder, she's also a business owner and board director. Welcome, Jane Fleming.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for having me.
Now, you have a lot going on career-wise. I'm guessing you're quite the expert in time management.
I am, but I think that skill is actually something that I've been able to bring from my sporting career through. So I always worked when I was an athlete, worked or studied, and in some cases did both. So I actually came through the Australian Institute of Sport in the mid-80s, and where it was compulsory to work or study 15 hours a week, which I am a true believer in. But I had 26 contact hours of university, a part-time job, and I trained for 7 different events. And so juggling all of those really gave me a fantastic, I guess, experiential learning in managing my time. And I'm lucky, not a little different to you, but because I was an individual sport, I could move my training sessions around a little bit to fit those other things in as well.
Tell me more about your time at the AIS in your early years, Jane. I'm guessing that you obviously had to study. What else did you fit in? How did you manage that as an athlete?
Look, I think the best thing that I can ever say around the Institute of Sport is that I'm from Melbourne, and I went from being quite a big fish in a little pond to being a very small fish in a big pond. And it changed the way I perceived success. And so all of a sudden success became sitting next to someone who just won an Olympic gold medal in one sport, or broken a world record, or won a world championship. So being a national champion meant nothing anymore. And so it really changed the paradigm of what success was for me. And I think being mixed and in that unbelievable environment of excellence and sharing of knowledge across sports was such a fundamental, platform for our success in Australia that went on to sport sort of really for the next 15 to 20 years.
I agree. I had many good years at the AIS, and that sharing of experience, I think, between athletes is always a really good thing. Tell me, did you have a really good or clear idea of where you wanted to go career-wise after sport?
I sort of did. I was lucky in a sense. I came through sort of the initial stages of the commercialisation of sport, and particularly from a female's perspective. There was probably me and Lisa Curry at the time, and so I managed to get some experience both from being an athlete that was involved in a commercial environment, and then on the other side of it as well, trying to understand what my sponsors or partners were looking for commercially. And then I was really lucky that I also came through and had a media opportunity come through because of some of my success on sport. So I'd seen things from both sides of the cameras as well. And those things gave me a really, an inkling into what could happen further down the path. And as I said, I did always work, and I think that helped as well.
It sounds like that marketing experience you had was priceless, because you went on to start your own business.
Yes.
Which is a pretty difficult task at the best of times. How did you find that?
Well, look, I think not necessarily difficult. My timing was brilliant. By mistake, but brilliant, because I really finished training full-time for the 7 events 4 years before the Sydney Olympics. And as you can imagine, being an ex-athlete in Sydney with 4 years to go, with some marketing experience and media experience and a bit of profile, that was the perfect entree for me to then start having the rest of my life in a way. And I always was intrigued by that and had a sense of curiosity about other things than sport as well.
What were some of the biggest challenges you had along your career path? So you finished sport and then you went on to launch your own business.
Yes.
What were some of the biggest obstacles that you had to overcome?
Look, I think if I'm talking especially to Olympians, one of the things I can say that to use those letters at the end of your name to your advantage. And one of the things that I really found as a female is I didn't so much find the glass ceiling. because I'd go into a meeting and it didn't matter who it was with, and in particular with men, they wanted to have done what I had done. And that doesn't happen very often in the world as we know it. So I think that was a really fantastic learning for me, is to make sure that I used all of the assets that I could use and the skills that I'd learnt from competing and training for that many years as well. So around being disciplined to hit deadlines and making sure you deliver what you promise, and looking at things from someone else's perspective, and doing the hard things as well as the easy things, you know. So it wasn't always just the glamorous stuff, it was the stuffing of the envelopes. Or even I started a business 6 years ago with a business partner, and her and I, you know, at the ripe period of our careers, were delivering pamphlets to a whole lot of businesses. So I think it was one of those experiences through sport where you have to do the hard things to be successful that really came through. And so I think the obstacles were always seen as being able to be overcome. And again, that's something that comes from sport. When you got injured, well, you just keep going, don't you? And you do what you can do to keep going.
Exactly. It's that resilience, and athletes were not afraid of hard work, you could say. Now, I wanted to ask you about your board experience, because you're currently on the board of Athletics Australia, as well as a couple of other boards as well. Why do you think it's so important for athletes to have the necessary skills and training? Because we recently just completed actually the AICD not-for-profit directors course. So a lot of great skills picked up there, which is a great initiative by the AOC. Why do you think it is really, I guess, essential for athletes to have the background, not just the athlete experience, if they want to sit on a board?
Well, I think it has to come with some other credibility as well. And, you know, there is still slightly a perception that athletes can be the dumb jock as well. So there is that to overcome in a commercial environment, and to show that you have more than just being an athlete. Because being an athlete in a commercial world is never going to get you anywhere, not in a serious manner. So I think to develop those other skills is really important. And I think the other thing, certainly from my perspective, I'm so lucky I was born with some athletic ability, and then able to live a brilliant life throughout my 20s and part of my 30s doing something that I loved, that I would do for free. And then to have those skills to then be able to go and put back in to, whether it's the sport you came from or to another sport or a charity or another organisation, but to continue to be productive in some manner. And so I think all of those skills, don't put them to waste for the rest of your life. They can be really used as unbelievable assets that can contribute to something bigger.
I did want to ask you more about your board role. So you are obviously an athlete, you contribute a great deal. On the flip side of having the skills, why is the athlete voice on a board so important, particularly with a sporting board?
Well, I think it was interesting having done that course. You know, there's lots of talks around directors being accountants and lawyers and the likes, but the one thing that we all learnt throughout that course is that it was vital to have empathy for the product. As a board member. So you can't sit on a board of an organisation and have no understanding of what the product is. So in terms of looking at a directorship for a sporting organisation, obviously having been an athlete, you have an intricate knowledge of the sport, certainly at the elite level, or in fact you've come through the juniors as well. So you have quite a broad knowledge of those sports. And so I think that is again something that an athlete can bring to a board that someone that hasn't had that experience can't. And I think that's highly valuable on a board, a sporting board.
Absolutely, I agree. Any tips for athletes though, wanting to get on boards from your experience?
I think understanding that you have to be very objective, and that it's actually not about you. It's about, which as an athlete, you know, if you've been an elite athlete, it's all about you. Whereas this is about something that's again bigger, and it's about the organisation. And so I think that's a really big tip. If you ever want to get involved, yes, there is some personal fulfilment, but it actually has to be an outward-looking perspective taken to those roles.
Very wise words, Jane.
Thank
you for sharing.
Thanks.
You have so much great experience. I've loved hearing from you.
Thank
but please
you.
stick around. We do have a
will.
Q&A at the end, and I know we've already had some questions come in for you. Well, if you're an Olympian watching this and looking for some guidance on how to develop your personal and professional goals, the Olympian Opportunities Program is a great place to start. Let's hear from Olympic rower Cameron Girdlestone about his experiences with the program so far.
Through the Olympians Opportunities Program, I gained the confidence that what I can be doing now, in and amongst my training, still solely focused on going to Tokyo, I can use my time effectively now to help myself with the transition from being an athlete to career life. The big attraction to the Olympians Opportunities Program was the opportunity to have access to so many great resources that have been well researched. There's some very knowledgeable people a part of the program. You get assigned to an expert in the field. Their big question is, how can I help you? And these are past Olympians that have gone through the process and stepped through this process that you are about to step through when that time comes. I would strongly encourage you to sign up, have a read of it, because the resources are so well presented, it's easy to follow, and you'll gain so much confidence out of it. I truly believe it can help all athletes.
Thanks, Cam. So whether you're in the midst of competing or retired, the program aims to assist you in different facets of your life. And just recently, we added the financial literacy program, courtesy of Westpac. It's now time to hear from someone who's forged an incredible career that may not fit the traditional mould. Charlie Albone is an award-winning landscape designer, and you'll no doubt recognise him as the star of Better Homes and Gardens. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you for having me.
Now, something that not many people would know about you is that you actually have a background, some sporting prowess, I should say, in the field of equestrian.
Well, I hang on, shall we say. Yeah, no, I used to have horses, so yeah. I love riding. I used to love doing show jumping and cross country and dressage and stuff like that, but that was when I was much younger and more fearless.
More fearless,
yeah.
yes. Do you still watch the equestrian at the Olympics?
I still watch it, yeah, I do.
It's a tough event, the show jumping and
really
the cross
is.
country.
Yeah, the height of those jumps, I just think you're crazy.
Yeah. Now, tell me, did you always have the goal of getting into landscape design? Is it something that you always had an interest in growing up?
I've always loved gardens and landscape. I was born in Hong Kong, but I moved to the UK when I was 12, and the period between 12 and 18, I lived there and just loved it. I fell into my job as a landscaper, shall I say, by just chance. Like I was working 2 jobs to try and get to Australia for a year out. So I was working as a painter and decorator and in a pub in the evening. And then I witnessed on the way to the pub, I witnessed a car accident and went into the house, this big English country manor house that this guy ploughed into the front gates, went in and said, look at the car that took off. I didn't get the number plate, but it was a black Vauxhall Calibra. And he said, oh, yeah, thank you terribly. Would you like a job working in the gardens? And I thought, sure, why not? I told him that I was trying to go to Australia, but I'd love to do it on the weekend. And I just fell in love with it, cutting stripes in lawns and looking after roses. And I remember the moment I saw this bulb coming out of the grass and watching it develop, and I just thought, yeah, that's something I need to do as a job, yeah.
So that's how you landed your first gig?
My first gig, yeah.
So was it the creative side of it that really attracted you to it?
I think it was just watching the plants grow and that kind of magic to it, and then realising, like when you're younger, you just really like physical work. Like I like pushing heavy wheelbarrows around and stuff and thought that was great fun. And then I sort of, the good thing about landscaping is it's creative. You get to come up with an idea, you get to build it, so you got the physical side, and then you get to maintain it to watch it get better over time, and I just love the whole process.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And did you have any formal studies, or what's your educational background?
I went to TAFE, so I didn't get into university. When I was travelling, I was trying to get into university in the UK, and I got knocked back. I didn't have that bad of grades, but I didn't get in, and so I really thought, well, I want to stay in Australia, I should study, so I went to TAFE and did a diploma in horticulture and landscape design.
And the rest is history.
Started a business whilst I was at TAFE, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Because I think for some people, they think they might need to actually take some formal education routes and take a more traditional path. But it sounds like for you, it was moving to Australia and having that knockback actually steered you in that direction.
It did, and it just doing what I thought felt right, what I was enjoying. And when I was at TAFE, I was working in construction, landscape construction for a guy, and I didn't really like the way he was working. It was just like no one was to talk during the day, no radios. It was really... And I just thought, man, I'm working all this time and not enjoying it, but I like what I'm doing. So I thought, I'll start my own business. I'll work 3 days a week. It'll be easy. You know, starting your own business, you're working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day.
24/7.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I love it, so.
We just heard about the Olympian Opportunities Program, and one of the great features of that is having a mentor. Did you have a mentor coming through the ranks and to gain experience from, or just someone that you'd like to bounce ideas off?
I didn't have a mentor as such, and if you can get one, it's great, because I made a lot of mistakes. I've always owned my mistakes and learned from them. I guess now I've got a bit more of a media profile, you meet all these great people and you can call them and ask them questions, and Graham Ross I can call up and ask him gardening questions and stuff like that and use him as a mentor, and if people call me I'll always answer their questions as well.
Tell me more about the TV presenting. How did you fall into that, and what do you love about it?
I fell into it to spite my ex-girlfriend, shall we say.
Yes, as good a reason as any.
Yeah, as good a reason as any. Look, I was sent an email from a design association I'm with, but it went out to everyone, and I'd recently split up with this ex-girlfriend, and I called her and said, I'm thinking of trying out for the show, and she goes, you'll never do it, and if you do, you'll be rubbish at it. So, that's all it took for me. I was like, right, I'm going to do this. I was living with an American guy who wanted to be an actor. I'm like, you're the only friend I know who's not going to make fun of me doing this video, so come to one of my gardens and let's do this video. And I fluked it and got in, yeah. Oh. And I enjoy it. It's something different. It's the same field, but it's something completely different, having to turn up and talk to a camera and do designs that look great straight away and you can't wait for them to mature over time. It's a different style of gardening, but I enjoy it.
And so many people would know you now from Better Homes and Gardens. And it's the TV side of it, I guess, that I wanted to ask you more about, because it's an area that a lot of people would like to get into, perhaps, and combining the two, it's really, really interesting. Yeah. What challenges have you experienced along the way to getting there, and how did you overcome them?
TV's a funny one. A lot of people want to get into it, but it's really difficult to get into. I luckily managed to get in. I guess because they're looking for my replacement on Selling Houses Australia, and there's a lot of people that are contacting me saying, how do I get into it? And I guess the only tip I can give you is to be yourself. If you start pretending to be someone else, and it never works if you try to be someone else. So when I started Better Homes and Gardens, I realized that I was trying to be something preconceived, and it wasn't. I was watching it back going, this doesn't quite seem right for me. And I thought, oh, bugger it, I'm just going to be myself. And as soon as I made that mental switch, change the switch, then started to really enjoy myself.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
Charlie, I did want to come back to some of your many awards. Two-time winner at the Chelsea Flower Show. Yep. Have they been some of your career highlights, and what else? Yeah. What other highs have you experienced along the way?
Chelsea Flower Show is definitely up there. There was Fleming's nursery took designers for 10 years and then stopped, and I sort of picked up the baton and went as an Australian designer to the Chelsea Flower Show, because I'm trained here, and I've lived here the majority of my life, so I see myself as Australian. So going there and pulling that off was a real highlight for me. But the jobs you get after that have been great. So I've built gardens in Singapore for the Shangri-La Hotel. We redid their lobby for them and flew over there with a team and built this huge basalt living wall. And it's just going through those experiences is just great fun.
Gosh, that's amazing. Some highs, definitely some highs. But it sounds like you have had a few challenges along the way, which is also really good for people to hear. Yep. You mentioned before that one of the things you love about landscape gardening is the creative side and seeing things grow and shaping things. What other things do you love about it? I'm guessing that you meet some pretty interesting people along the way too.
You meet some really interesting people. I like the kind of mental health side that it gives me, just being outside, and it just everyone says that I'm quite chilled out, and I put it down to putting my hands in the dirt and that sort of thing. And I actually get paid to do it, which is great.
Which is the goal.
It's the goal. It's great, yeah.
Oh, that's great to hear, Charlie. Thank you so much for sharing all of those tips and some great experience. Also, stick around. We do have a Q&A coming up. Before we get to our Q&A though, our Wellbeing Week partner Allianz conducted a huge piece of research earlier this year into the role of Olympians and Paralympians around mental health. Let's hear from someone who is set to make their Olympic debut in Tokyo next year and has experienced his own ups and downs. Surfer Owen Wright.
Fear is something that I didn't really register with prior to the head injury, and afterwards it was right in my face. If I wanted to go for a surf, I would be freaked out. If anyone has had panic attacks, you would understand that they grip your chest so tightly. That right there is just fear, and that just rises up when you feel like you're in a situation that you're completely out of control. Those emotions can come up sometimes, and actually identifying them and working with them can be the key to actually releasing them.
And Owen will be a guest this Thursday on Wellbeing Week. It's time to take questions now from you watching along. If you haven't already submitted yours, please do so in the comment section of whichever stream you're watching this on right now. Now, we've had plenty of questions come in today for our guests. The first one is for you, Jane, and this comes from Chris on Facebook. Is exercise still important for your mental and physical well-being?
Absolutely. I joke really that I exercise for sanity and vanity. and I definitely, if I'm feeling out of sorts, I know I have to do one of two things. I either run or I sleep. And I think, I've studied quite a lot as well, but I understand that the change it brings to your neurochemistry, and that's just how it works. And I'm a massive believer in doing a little bit a lot, especially after having done a lot. And I don't exercise with anyone else. I don't do any formal sessions. I just want it to be for enjoyment. And I find it's really meditative. And I think that's the, in a busy life, it's really important to understand yourself really well and understand what brings you, what makes you recentered. And, certainly for athletes, we loved it enough to do it full time. So try and get that love back to what first took you to it. And I find it's been incredible for my mental health.
That's such good advice, because as an athlete, I think you do have to change your relationship with exercise when you retire and find something that works for you and brings you joy. Charlie, what about you? What's your exercise of choice?
Gardening.
Gardening, yes, gardening,
No,
great exercise.
I've been trying to exercise a lot more recently, just for the mental health.
And I've been trying to garden a lot more.
There you go. With our powers combined.
And I have to say though, but I get a little bit of a meditative response from gardening as I do when I exercise as well.
I think it's that time to yourself as well. Like you said, with exercise, you do it by yourself. So it's that time to yourself where you don't have to worry about anyone else and you can just
And I think
out.
the time just flies, doesn't it? And you're in your own headspace too. And even I think using those things as a form of problem solving as well. It's been brilliant for me. I've never gardened up until 10 years ago, and I've loved doing a bit of gardening, and I can understand how people get hooked on it.
Yeah,
it is.
I've never run and I still don't enjoy it.
And I understand that.
There you go. We can agree to disagree on that one. Next question. I'd like to get both of your take on this. It's come through from Alicia on Facebook. We'll start with you though, Charlie. What's been the biggest change to your work business because of COVID-19? And have you learned anything from this time that's actually been a positive lesson?
I have an office with landscape designers and our contractors work from there. A lot of that has gone remotely. And that's been eye-opening. I mean, we work in a creative space, so there are times when we need to be together to bounce ideas off, but we've realised it doesn't need to be a full-time thing and we can be more productive away. And I've just enjoyed a lot more time with my family as well, less time travelling and stuff. It's been
That's
great.
been a huge positive for a lot of people this year, I think. How about you, Jane?
Well, I've never worked out of an office or had a job, as you would say. So it hasn't changed my working from that perspective so much, but taking meetings that are not in person, I've found a little bit challenging, especially if they're new business meetings or if I'm meeting people for the first time. And I have found that challenging because I don't think you get the same interaction. To do follow-up meetings or have a meeting with somebody you already know, I don't think is so much of an issue. So whilst people think that, this might be the change forever, I think there's still going to be that need for the interpersonal relationship. So I found that quite challenging. And then I'm so lucky that I have children who are 12, but some of my contemporaries or even younger that have young children I know have found the home educating and the COVID environment very challenging. I know Charlie's got young kids and I think that's been a super challenge, but the only thing I would say for that is that you're not alone, because nearly everybody I know who's got young kids has faced the same challenges.
Well, that actually comes on to our next question that's come through, and this is from Will on Facebook. So as parents and successful business people, what's your best advice for keeping a balanced home and work life, particularly this year?
I think it's whatever you're doing, be 100% doing just that. Like, there's nothing worse than pretending to have time with the kids whilst you're on your phone answering emails, because you're not doing either of them properly. And I mean, it's hard not to with the way phones work and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, try and focus on just the family life or just the work life.
I think there's been two things. One is a quote that I absolutely love, And it was Annabelle Crabb who said the conundrum with working women in particular is that they try to work like they're not a mother, and they try to mother like they don't work. And I think we don't do ourselves any favours when you go, oh yeah, I can take that meeting at 4 o'clock, and then you're going, oh my God, how am I going to get little Johnny to rugby? I've got that meeting on, and it just adds a component of stress. So I think that's a challenge. But I think from an athlete's perspective, you know, we've really got that whole intensity, all or nothing attitude. And I think one of the big resets that I did when I left athletics, because I was quite intense about it, is to understand that that's my nature. So I changed my goal. So my goal is now to be more balanced. And I'm still goal driven because you can't change your nature, but I now find if I'm doing any one thing too much, then I need to try and pull back and be self-aware enough to know, pull back a little.
I like that concept of resetting your goals,
Yes.
particularly given this year, because we've all had to reset goals
Yeah.
with the challenges that have been thrown our way.
Yeah.
Charlie, this question has come through for you. It's from Chris on Facebook. Charlie, what advice do you have for those who can't or don't want to go to university, and how can they be successful in their future professional careers?
You need to work out what it is you enjoy doing and see if you can turn that into a job, really. Like I'm really lucky that I found gardening quite early on in life. I was 18 years old, and I've managed to make a career out of it. So, you know, I thought I was going to go on the normal trajectory and go to university, like do a gap year, go to university and do something else, but didn't get into university, luckily, and, you know, just worked it out, just kept going.
And I love that. As a parent, that's the one thing I would wish for my children is to find their thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what your thing is. And you know what, if you want to play golf but you're not good enough to be a professional golfer, then be a greenkeeper or take commercial golf tours or make golf videos or own a golf shop, or, you know, there's always something. But if you, like many of us have done, you've spent a large chunk of your adult life doing something you love, and that's why you're good at it. And so in some sports you can earn an income doing something you love.
So would you both agree then, the recipe for success, you have to love what you do?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Absolutely
Yeah.
key.
All right, we've had so many questions come in. I would like to now go, this one will go to both of you. It's from Andrew on YouTube. In these crazy COVID times, we keep hearing that you need me time, but how much should you have and how much is too much?
I think that's individual.
Yeah, that is individual.
Yeah.
For you, Charlie, how do you take your me time and what does that look like?
It's there's just something that needs pruning in the front garden.
Or watering
I just
or
need to,
weeding.
yeah. But if I don't do it today, it'll get out of
You
control.
sound like my husband.
Yeah.
So outdoor time. How about you,
Outdoor
Jane?
time, yeah.
Well, it's my running thing, and also I'm a real lover of me time. My whole adult life, even when I was training again, being an individual sport, while there were people around, you're in your own head and doing your own thing. So I'm one of those crazy mothers that doesn't go to bed till nearly midnight because everyone else is in bed a few hours before me, and I get to have a couple of hours on the sofa doing whatever I want without being interrupted. So that's one form of it. But again, I think, it's around understanding what makes you happy. And I recall the first time I travelled away overseas with my husband, and I said to him before we left, I said, I'm not really used to having people around 24/7. I said, so one day I'm just going to leave at breakfast and I promise I'll be back by dinner. So I think you just have to understand yourself as well with regards to what sustains you.
Yeah.
That's very true. Next question has come in from Georgia on YouTube. Charlie, has anyone ever said that they don't like what you've done with their garden, and how do you react? And I guess this flows into, and both of you, I'd love to get your perspective. How do you take negative criticism?
With my business, I don't get much bad feedback like that, because part of the job is getting to meet someone, working out what they want and fulfilling their brief. In the past, when it's been TV shows, you take the homeowner out of the equation and do something for them and just hope they like it. And often they've turned up and gone, I don't like it. But the brief was to sell the house, for example, and they're living in it the way that it is, and it's not selling. So to sell it, we have to do some stuff to it that they may not like. But I just take it on the chin.
Take it on the chin, charge on.
Yeah.
And
Jane?
again, I think that's one of the skills that you take from being an athlete into the rest of your life. You're used to being coached. And it's one of the things that I find there's a dearth of in the commercial world, feedback. And so I always talk around acting and seeking and working in an environment of constructive criticism. So if you get some coaching in a commercial world that says you're doing this wrong or I don't like that, well, you take it on board like you would if you were trying to shoot a goal or, you know, swim a lap or whatever it happens to be, and you use that to add to your performance.
So turn it into a positive.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. We've had so many great questions come in, but I just wanted to say thank you both for giving us your time today, sharing your experience and your expertise. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having
Lots
us.
of pearls
More
of
than
wisdom out
welcome.
there.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in today. I know I've picked up plenty of useful tips and I hope you have too. Today served as a great reminder for me that there's no better time than now to start putting some things, even just little things, in place that will set you up for the long run. We would love to hear more about what you're doing to empower yourself. So if you could, please share your thoughts on your socials and use the hashtag #EmpowerYourself. We'll be sharing your ideas throughout the week. And please put 1 p.m. tomorrow in your diary right now. We'll be here again, this time to celebrate friendship and the joy that comes from staying connected with Olympic snowboarders Holly Crawford and Belle Brockhoff. We'll also be celebrating the life of Alex Chumpy Pullen, an Olympian who was a dear friend and cherished teammate to so many. See you then.